previous episode, while destroying old Iron Man armor, Tony Stark discovered data about an encounter with Dr. Doom that he could not remember. Doom had requested Iron Man's aid, telling him millions of lives hung in the balance. Iron Man joined Doom as he journeyed to the Nether Realm. Little did Stark know it was Doom's ploy to trap him in Hell and obtain the ancient Excalibur. Iron Man escaped and caught up to Doom in Scotland. The villain, his armor now powered by the legendary sword, was attempting to recover its scabbard and add to his power. But Iron Man thwarted Doom and grabbed it himself, making his armor magically invulnerable. But Doom was counting on the combined power of the sword and the scabbard to fight a demon, one that's just been awoken.
In the long years since I first donned my electronically augmented armor, I had looked death in the eye many times, but this was the first time it ever looked back.
Legacy of Doom, Knightmare'S End, Chapter 4.
I was finally remembering what had happened in those lost days, how I'd confidently aimed my palm-mounted repulsors, how they'd spat streams of sparkly light, instead of the expected particle blasts.
Merging with Excalibur's scabbard changed you, Avenger. You are now.
Don't say it, magic.
Adjust and move on. We must act quickly if we are to. This, meddler, is why I sought to join Excalibur and its scabbard. Together they might have given us a chance, but now.
We were in Scotland, where security guards rarely carried firearms, but as part of an elite anti-terror force, these guards had pistols, pitiful useless pistols. Caught in the giant orb stare, they stopped shooting, began to smolder, and in seconds were skin-covered bone, sockets empty, their eyes and souls part of the monstrous invader.
What is that thing? Why is it here? What does it want?
Do you expect me to fill out a questionnaire?
No, I expect you to stay out of the way, while I do something.
I had no confidence in my new mystic repulsors, so I opted for a physical approach instead. I felt a wrenching pull, like claws in my brain, but my scabbard-shielded armor protected me from the worst of the monster's soul-siphoning assault, while Dr. Doom took advantage of the distraction to hack at an ice talk with Excalibur, which apparently ticked the creature off to no end. It was free and on the move, heading for a good-sized city on the horizon, a metropolis filled with unsuspecting, helpless human beings.
Cast a spell shot in front of the beast. Turn the ground brittle so its weight will cause it to sink.
Hocus pocus is your thing, Doom. I don't know how.
Focus. Magic is driven by will. Your mind is your greatest weapon. See what you want, imagine it, then make it happen.
Okay. I had a mind, and I had willpower. I'd never used them precisely this way, but always a first time, I guess. It worked, but not enough.
Ground's cracking, but not giving way.
Which is why one should never send a lackey to do a master's task.
Whatever spiked out from Excalibur's blade did the trick. The earth splintered like crystal, layer after layer, creating a pit 100 feet deep, and in a heartbeat, we were alone on the Ballenera plain.
This is not victory, it is merely reprieve.
Then talk, Doom, now.
Take care, Avenger. One does not demand of Dr. Doom. Still, like it or not, we fight together, and knowledge is strength. Very well. In my ongoing quest to increase my mystical knowledge, I borrowed a certain tome from another dimension. Alas, the previous owner, the selfsame horror we face now, was not pleased. It swore to take as payment all that I possess, and as king of Latveria, that would include my subjects. In an effort to save their souls, I struck a bargain with Mephisto. I gave him you in exchange for the means to obtain Excalibur and its scabbard. Together, they would provide the power to thwart this monster. But when the scabbard merged with your armor, that option was removed, and we are.
I imagine the word he was looking for was, ironically, doomed. But at that moment our otherworldly adversary found its way to the top of the pit. The slithering mountain of ocular horror was on the move again, which brought up a new question.
I don't get it, Doom. Latveria is to the south, so why is this thing following the road north, like it's heading for the nearest population center, the most convenient source of food?
For a short time, some years ago, I literally became emperor of the world. So that, technically, everything on the planet belonged to me.
You mean?
Yes, I fear this slavering fiend intends to harvest the souls of all my subjects, past and present, which would be every man, woman, and child on Earth.
No. Simple as that. No.
I knew direct assaults were pointless, and I wasn't about to trust my paltry spell shots to save the day. On the other hand, thanks to Excalibur's scabbard, I was now invulnerable. Perhaps it was time to make that count. The explosion was like a gigantic flashbulb, stunning the million eyes staring right into it, and Doom made quick use of the disorientation, sending a stream of dark sorcery through Excalibur. The smaller orbs began to blacken, popping and running like bursting boils, while the towering abomination itself trembled and staggered, tilting to topple.
Backwards.
Doom.
I am whole. But once again it appears our efforts have been for naught. The creature's wounds recede. It heals itself.
Then, there's nothing we can do.
Oh yay, such a pessimist you've become.
Merlin?
Actually, my mental projection. I'm still under a snooze spell until England's darkest hour, which seems to be getting pretty darn close.
Then if wisdom is all you can offer, mage, do so now.
Answer's still the same, Doctor. Excalibur putting it in its scabbard is the only way to stop Mr. Icky.
But how can the two be united as they are?
You're not listening. You have to put the sword into the scabbard.
But I'm the scabbard now.
Yes, you are.
So there it was, on the table at last, the decision I knew I'd have to face someday. But risking my life in battle was one thing. Making the choice to give it up, calmly, coldly, was like putting a gun to my head and promising to pull the trigger. I wasn't ready for this, but then I saw the monster rip the soul from another victim. My life, to save millions? There wasn't really a choice at all, but I didn't feel heroic. I only felt empty.
Alright, Doom. Let's get this over with.
Perhaps, Avenger, there is more to you than I credited.
No, nothing, but I thought.
Magic works on belief, bucko, and I guess that lets you out. Your armors can remain invulnerable to everything, until you will it not to be.
But I don't know if I can. Science is my anchor, the one thing I can depend on. To accept magic goes against everything I trust.
Then trust me, acceptance is not always contrary to belief. Sometimes, it is merely belief in something more.
Doom was evil, but he was also a scientist, a brilliant man. Perhaps it was time to admit that someone else could be right. Time to take strength from my enemy. I closed my eyes, inhaled slowly, opened my mind to a different perspective, and for the few seconds of life I had remaining, I saw a bigger world.
Do it.
The pain, the revulsion, the terror, words haven't been invented to fully express them. But the results were what mattered. Energy came from somewhere, shot through us, slinking up and crackling as it flowed over the hulking devourer of souls. There was a sound like a giant foot stepping on miles of bubble wrap, the stench of smoldering rot, the echo of a billion tiny screams, and then it was done.
I'm alive, and my armor back to normal. There isn't even a wound.
But the sword, where is the...
It's done its work, boys. And so, have you. Thanks. But now I gotta scoot, get this back to the Lady of the Lake, and use what little power I have to muster a couple of spells. One to make the world think this destruction was caused by a natural disaster. The other to make you two forget it ever happened.
Wait a minute. I understand Doom coveting this kind of power, going after Excalibur again if he remembered, but why me?
Things can change, in time. Even heroes. Why take chances?
My memory dims already, but perhaps that is not the worst that could happen. The scales are balanced.
And so he headed south, while I turned west, and that was the last I ever thought of the incident. Until now, when my memory block was shattered by data from the automatic recording chip I had removed from my old armor. Even Merlin hadn't thought of that. I could let it go, satisfied that my past was whole again. But the idea that Merlin didn't trust me, That he thought I might go after Excalibur for my own ends really rubbed me the wrong way. So, I decided to do something about it.
Yes, Mr. Stark.
Have my private jet fueled, the blue one, I think, and tell the pilot to file a flight plan for Heathrow, England. 3 days later, I was in the British countryside.
I know you spent a mountain of cash buying this property, Mr. Stark, but might I suggest building your mall around the lake? Maybe even incorporate the lake into the landscaping? I mean, some legends say this is where King Arthur hid Excalibur back in the Camelot days. Could even be a bit of a tourist draw if left open. So why don't I just redraw them?
My order stands, Mr. Conroy. Cover the lake, but don't drain it. Leave it intact.
But with the design and materials you stipulate, that big puddle could stay exactly as it is for 1,000 years.
I know. Let's just say I'm sending a message to an old friend.